Greetings, it's Iain from RTO here. Welcome to Tuesday. And we're going to kick off today with an album ranking of a great American band that sort of I was always interested in the lyrics of the person that wrote them, and that person is Jim Morrison. I am a huge Jim Morrison fan, and of course we're talking about The Doors. Formed in Los Angeles in California back in 1965 with Jim Morrison on the vocals, Ray Manzarek on the keyboards, Robbie Krieger on the guitars, and John Densmore on the drums. They had a huge following. They were big. Sadly, Jim passed away in uncertain circumstances, I say, in 1971. The band did continue with 3 more albums, but they just didn't sound right. Musically they were good, but without Jim there it wasn't. They briefly reunited in 1993 when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Sadly, Ray's now passed away. He passed away in 2013. During their career, they did release 9 studio albums, believe it or not. So we're going to have a look at all of them today, even the ones that Jim wasn't on. So coming in number 9, we have the 8th album, and it was released in 1972, and it's the second one after Jim's passing. And it's called Full Circle. You've got Ray, Robbie, and John on here. Additional players on here, we've got Chico Batera on percussion on the piano bird and the Peking and the New York Queen. Bass on a couple of tracks is the legendary Leland Sakar. He plays a bit of bass on here. So does Jack Conrad, Charles Larkey, and Chris Etheridge. Extra vocals from Vanetta Fields and Clyde King and Melissa McKay. So the first track on here is a track called Get Up and Dance. Yeah, you know it's when you hear the music, you know it's the Doors. I mean, Ray can sing. He does a nice job on it, but it's not Jim, is it? It's okay, though. I don't mind it. 4 Billion Souls. Oh, it's a lacks something here. Lacks soul, I don't know. Verdiac. Very jazzy. More jazz than rock. I'm not keen on this one. I'm really not. Good rocking. Now, this is a great track. Second favourite track on the album, actually. It sounds like it's may have been something idea they were working on the LA Woman album. But it finally saw the light of day. I don't know if that's true, but it does sound like it could have been one of these songs that's been sort of in the brains for a little while. Okay, the next track is the Mosquito, my favourite track on here. It features on bass Leland Sakar. Some great guitar work here from Robbie. I do like that track. It is very good. The Piano Bird comes next. One of a really good guitar work here from Robbie, and keyboards from Ray are fantastic. It is not a bad track. It slipped my mind. Certainly got that vibe of the Doors with them playing of the band. John, Robbie and Ray still sound as good. It's not too bad. The Peking and the New Orleans Queen, nah. Just doesn't ring with me. I found it very difficult to get on with that one. And that was the last track. Now, there was 2 or 3 moments of greatness on this album. But don't get me wrong, I like to hear these 3 guys playing, but without Jim, it just didn't sound right. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 8, we have the 7th album, and it was the first one they released after the death of Jim. and it's called Other Voices. It came out in 1971. So, joining Ray, Robbie and John on here, Jack Conrad on the bass, Jerry Sheff on bass as well. Wolfgang Meltz plays some bass, so does Ray. Napoleon Willie Ruff plays some acoustic guitar. Francesco Urabagella on percussion and Emil Richards on marimba. First track on here is called In the Eye of the Sun. Certainly got that distinctive Doors sound. Can't get away from that. Ray's vocals are reasonably good. He's a good singer. It's not too bad, actually. I don't mind that. Then we have the Variety is the Spice of Life. Now, this is a bluesy number written by Robbie. It's not a bad track. Some really nice guitar work from Robbie on that. Ships with Sails, musically brilliant. Some great drumming on here from John. It's not too bad. It is not too bad. Tightrope Ride. Just got to get used to racing in these lyrics, but the song itself, the structure is very good. I do like the music on this. It's really good. Then we have Down on the Farm, probably one of the weirdest tracks I've ever heard from the Doors. I don't know if it's poppy country. It's a bit strange. It doesn't really flow at all. My favourite track on here is a thing called I'm Horny and Stoned. I think this is one of the best tracks that the Doors did after Jim. It's a fun, weird track. It's got the spirit of Jim in this. I just love it. It is one of my favourite tracks. If I was to do a top 10 songs by the Doors, I think this would be just scraping or bubbling under. It is a really strong track. Wandering Musician. It's got some great piano from Ray on this. He was a fantastic pianist. Great little track. And the last track is called Hang On To Your Life. I'm not keen on this one. It's a bit bitty. I mean, in all honesty, it's a very hard album to do when you've lost your main man and an incredible man. But they do a sterling job musically. They sound brilliant. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 7 is the 9th and final album, and it's called American Prayer. And on here it is, they found some spoken words of Jim Morrison, and they sort of put the words to they put the music to it. And so you've got Ray, Robbie, John, additional personal knowledge, Arthur Barrow on synthesizer, Reno Andino on percussion, Bob Glaug on bass guitar, Jerry Sheff on bass as well. So this is just like Jim, you know how Jim used to on stage do these poems and that. This is all it is. So you've got Awake, Awake, Ghost Song, Dawn's Highway, Newborn. It's just a poem, and they put some little intro to it. Yeah, it's okay. To Come of Age, wonderful words from Jim. It was wonderful to hear these words. Some nice playing on here. They've really done well to try and get it to match. The Poet's Dream. Just imagine Jim saying this on the stage. It sort of worked. Then World on Fire, a good poem, and then halfway through this you get a live version of Roadhouse Blues, which isn't bad. I can cope with that. American Prayer comes next. Some great poems. Okay, it's okay. Some people may have put this at the bottom, but I will rank it a bit higher because I did like the poems of Jim Morrison, and that's why I like it, believe it or not. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 6, we go to the 4th album now that was released in 1969, and it's The Soft Parade. So it's Jim, Ray, Robbie and John. We've got some additionals on here. Harvey Brooks plays bass on a few tracks, and so does Doug Luban. Saxophone, Curtis Amy. Orchestral arrangements were Paul Harris. There's lots of people playing the horns on this. So the first track is Tell the People. Tell the People. I quite like this. I've always liked this track. I like it because it's got a little bit of horns on it. A great vocal from Jim as ever. Then we have Touch Me, which is a classic. I love Ray's keyboards in this. A fine vocal from Jim. I like how you get this beat on the Ray doing it on the keyboards, and then you think, oh, this is how Jim's going to do it, and it goes into something else. It's wonderful. I do like that track. Best track on the album. Shaman's Blues. John Desmore's drumming on this is fantastic. Great keyboards from Ray as ever. Do It. Robbie's guitar work on this is just fine. Easy Ride. One of my favourite tracks on here. I love the quirkiness of it, especially again that fine keyboard melody from Ray. Wild Child is a bluesy sort of number. It shows the great guitar skills of Robbie Krieger. I love that track. Running Blue comes next. One of those tracks of the Jim Morrison period that I never did like. It's not my favourite track on here. There's just too much going on. It's very busy. Wishful Sinful comes next. Some great sort of bassy sounds on here. I'm not quite sure who plays the a bass on this. Yes, Doug Luban. It's always great to have a little bit of bass. Pretty good track. Then we have the last track, the Soft Parade. Wonderful bit of poetry at the beginning from Jim. And then it sort of just melts a little bit, which is okay, but I wouldn't say it's one of my favourite tracks. Last track on the album. Oh, this is a strange one. This album. It's got some really good tracks on it. There's some tracks that... It's one of the albums where, with Jim albums, like there's some of the tracks I'm not as keen on. I mean, I listen to the album because I love the the Doors, but there's just something. There's a couple of tracks on here that I've never been really shone to. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 5, we have the second album from 1967, and it's Strange Days. So joining the band on here, Doug's back on the bass. We've got Paul Beaver on Moog synthesizer. First track is the title track, Strange Days, which is a really dreamy thing. I love John's drumming on it. That's great. Bit experimental. Fantastic little track that is. Your Lost Little Girl. Great little bass line here from Doug. And I love the quirky keyboard line from Ray on that one. Love Me Two Times, classic. Second favourite track on here. I do love Robbie's quirky guitar work. Complements Ray's wonderful keyboards. Jim's delivery of the vocal is superb on that one. We've got this little short track, 2 minutes long, of Unhappy Girl. Just shows off lots of Ray's keyboards skills. Really good. Horse Latitudes, a bit of a poem from Jim. It's okay. Moonlight Drive. Some great guitar work here from Robbie. Then we have the wonderful People Are Strange. The interplay between Robbie and Ray on this is fantastic. And then you get this great vocal from Jim. My Eyes Have Seen You. Good little rocker this is. The great drumming from John. Some nice licks from Robbie on the guitar. Excellent little track. I Can't See Your Face in My Mind. Not a great lover of this. It's got some glockenspiel on it. Doesn't work. But my favourite track on here is just a classic from the band, When the Music's Over, where the drumming is fantastic, the keyboard work is, I think it's a fabulous track. And a great vocal from Jim to end the album. Tough sophomore, but I think they pulled this off. It's got 3 classics for me on here. It's a really good album. The deep tracks are good as well. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, then coming in at number 4, we've got the third album released in '68, and it's Waiting for the Sun. Joining the chaps on this one, we have Douglas Lohan on bass again. Kerry Magnus is on bass as well, and Leroy Vinegar on acoustic bass on Spanish Caravan. Starts off with another well-known track, Hello, I Love You. I like that keyboard from Ray, and then sort of Jim does the vocal round that keyboard. Very good. Love Street, one of my favourite tracks on here. Some of the best Ray keyboards on this. Lovely track. Love that one. Then we have Not to Touch the Earth. This is one track that Ray's keyboard gets on your wick a little bit. Doesn't seem to fit in it. Summer's Almost Gone. Some lovely piano and keyboard from Ray on this one. Pretty good track. Then we have Wintertime Love. It just gets forgotten about. The keyboard work from Ray is magnificent. Super track. Then we have my favourite on here. It's probably one of my favourite tracks by the band The Unknown Soldier. What a fine performance on the vocals from Jim. When he did this live, he delivered all the time. It's just such a powerful song. Spanish Caravan. I love the little bass acoustic on this. Really is good. Some nice little keyboards on this as well. My Wild Love. The one track on here, it's a bit weird, a little bit busy. We Could Be So Good Together. Great guitar work on here from Robbie, and some fine drumming from John as well. Yes, The River Knows. One of my favourite vocals from Jim on this album. I love the piano that Ray accompanies Jim on this. 5-1. The very distorted. It's not very. I don't think it's produced well. I think it's as a bad mix. Very solid album. Has got some other classics on here as well. It's a really good listen. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay, coming in at number 3, the fifth album from 1970, Morrison Hotel. So additionals on here are Ray Neapolitan on bass. We've got Lonnie Mack, who plays bass on Roadhouse Blues. John Sebastian, harmonica on Roadhouse Blues, yes, the John Sebastian. And Paul Beaver's back with his Moog. So, side 1 has got the title Hard Rock Cafe. And the first track on here is Roadhouse Blues. Probably one of my favourite songs ever. There's been some fantastic versions of this. I've heard Blue Oyster Cult do it. I've heard Fish do it, and of course I've heard Status Quo, because Status Quo had this on their Pile Driver album. I think Quo's is the second best behind the original. John Sebastian's harmonica is great on this. He just adds to it. It's a great classic from the Doors. Waiting for the Sun. Now there's some great bass here. This is this Ray Neapolitan. Great vocal from Jim on this. Excellent little track. I like the little Moogie on this as well. You Make Me Real. Love the beginning of this. The quirky guitar from Robbie is good. Pretty good. Peace Frog. A little punchy track. You've got some great drumming on this. Some great keyboard from Ray. And a really good guitar solo from Robbie. Blue Sunday. Very dreamy sort of track with some nice keyboards. Fine vocal from Jim. Ship of Fools. Great bass line. You know, some great drumming on that. Then we have side 2, which is titled The Morrison Hotel. So the first track is called Land Ho. My second favourite track on here. It's one of them deep cuts. And it's Ray's keyboard. You can just picture him how he used to play it on stage with that nodding head, and yeah, it's just Ray's off on one on this one. It's a great track. Then we get a track called The Spy, very jazzy with some bluesy guitars thrown there. It's absolutely brilliant. You've got Ray on the piano giving it that jazzy feel, Robbie's bluesy guitar, and a great vocal from Jim Morrison. Queen of the Highway. This actually belongs to Ray Napolitan on his bass. Absolutely brilliant bass line. Then we have a wonderful little track called Indian Summer, psychedelic. Some great little tones on the guitars. One of them deep cuts that I love. And then another great deep cut on here is at Maggie M. Gill. Again, the bass line is fantastic. What a track to end the album. Love this album. Not a bad track on it. Great listen from top to bottom. A lot of really good deep cut tracks on this. Also, having the bass, a bass player has given it lots of depth. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.8. Top 2, Door. This was tough. 2 great albums. So coming in at number 2 is the 6th album from 1971, and it was the last to feature Jim Morrison during his lifetime, and it's LA Woman, of course. So joining the boys on here, we've got Jerry Sheff on bass, Mark Bino on rhythm guitar on a couple of tracks. So the first track is called The Challenging. I love this. Jerry's bass line really adds to it. The keyboards are superb. It's got a groove to it, and Jim sings out of his tree on this one. Absolutely brilliant. Love Her Madly, one of my favourite tracks on this. The interplay between Bobby and Ray is fantastic. It just sort of ends, and then you've got this underlying bass from Jerry. Such a great track. Been So Long. Probably one of the best vocals Jim did on this album. John Desmore's drumming is fantastic. He's got a great sort of repertoire with Jerry on the bass. Really adds to it. Brilliant track. Then we have Car Hiss by My Window. Great number. Robbie's guitar work is brilliant. I think having the bass behind him, it really lets him go on that one. Then we have LA Woman, one of the classics. Just a brilliant track. Love this track. Always have liked it from the day it came out. My second favourite track on the album. Then we have L'America. Love Ray's keyboards on this. I love the drumming. I think John really excelled on this, on the drums on this album. Classic Doors sound. Hyacinth Howl. The highlights of this track is John's bass, John's drumming, I'm sorry, and he holds it together, and Robbie's guitar just oozes skill on this. Then they do a cover of a great John Lee Hooker song, Crawling King Snake. I love John Lee Hooker's version of this, but the great guitar from Robbie, I think he must have been a little bit of a John Lee Hooker fan. Then we have The Wasp, which is a Texas Radio and the Big Beat. Another bluesy track. The bass from Jerry is fantastic. Wonderful. And then we have my last track and my favourite track on the album, and probably my third favourite track by the band. It's the eerie, the magnificent Riders on the Storm. There's so much quality on this. The gentleness of the little drum beats from John, the little touches on the guitar, but it's that eerie keyboard from Ray that lightens it up, and a fantastic vocal from Jim. Excellent album. The critics didn't like it, but I love it. I think this is a fantastic album. Some classic stuff on here. And it's sad that, it's a fine performance from Jim, and this will be the last we'd ever hear from Jim. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. But my favourite album is the debut album, just called The Doors from 1967. Joining on here is Larry Ketchnell on bass. And Larry Ketchnell, of course, played with Bread. So he joins the band to just do a little bit of bass here and there. So we open up with a classic killer track, Break On Through to the Other Side. That dun dun dun, dun, I love that groovy keyboard that Ray sets the tone of the track. Then we have the wonderful Soul Kitchen. I think the live versions of this are brilliant. It's quirky. Them keyboards are brilliant from Ray. The Crystal Ship. The lyrics are on here are fantastic from Jim. It's such an eerie sort of feel to it. 20th Century Fox. That interplay between Ray and Robbie is brilliant. Always love listening to them. There's a great solo on here as well. Another classic next, Alabama Song, Whiskey Bar, which was written by Bert Tock, Breach and Kurt Weill. It's a great little cover of a great song. Magnificent keyboards. Then we have my favourite track by The Doors. Everyone loves this, and it's Light My Fire. It's absolutely brilliant. I prefer the live version to this, because it's just a brilliant track. What can you say? Then we have Backdoor Man, which is a Willie Dixon track. Lots of people have done versions of this, even for ZZ Top. It's brilliant. I Looked at Who. This is one of the sort of 60s poppy hits. It's got some great drumming from John on this. It's very similar to Light My Fire. I think this is probably one of the most commercial sounding tracks the Doors ever did. Brilliant track. End of the Night. Some really nice dreamy guitar work here from Robbie. Take It As It Comes. It's got this sort of feel that it's sort of ideas that came from Light My Fire, and it's brilliant. And then this album ends with the epic that's called The End. I think the vocal delivery from Jim on this is absolutely top drawer. It's dramatic, it's got everything, and it's a great track to end the album. Here we have one of them great debut albums. It's full of classics. There's not a bad track on here, and it's got 4 or 5 of my favourite tracks by The Doors on it. It's always going to be my number one. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.5. So there we go. I finally did The Doors. I've always wanted to do The Doors, but it was just thinking, when do I do it? I love listening to The Doors, and I will continue to enjoy listening to The Doors. Okay, that's all for this one. Up next is Retro Ranking, and today we're going to look at some great songs by Paul Simon. What is just his solo stuff, and none of the stuff he done with Art. So we're looking at the solo singles and songs of Paul Simon. So join me for that later. Bye for now.